Hi, it's Mark from Wiki Design, and welcome back to another episode of Can I Recreate It in Elementor? In this series, we take a look at websites with interesting design elements, and I see if I can recreate those elements using the Elementor page builder. Today's episode, I'm going to go over this fun scrolling tab system I found on the homepage of Wave. And this is it right here. So if you start to scroll down the website, you're going to see this section right here become sticky. These sections start to scroll in, and the buttons are highlighting as you scroll down. Now, at first, I thought this was going to be really easy to pull off, but I was very, very wrong on this one. This one actually took me a few hours to figure out how to pull this off using Elementor. Now, you got to remember, sometimes in web design, the things that look easy like this are sometimes the hardest things to pull off. Now, this will be a little more of an advanced tutorial, so you will need a good understanding of how CSS and JavaScript works in general. But don't worry, I'm going to walk you through most of the code so you can better understand how I got this to work. The first thing I recommend you do is actually pause this video, open up a new tab, and check out this video I created right here called Change Background Color on Scroll. I'm going to leave a link in the description, or you can click this card that's popping up right here. So to keep this tutorial a lot shorter, that's why I recommend you check out that video first, because I'm going to go over that type of functionality pretty quickly. Now the good news is I'm actually going to be using a lot of that code from that past tutorial in this tutorial. I'm actually just going to take exactly that code and just kind of add to it. And here's an example of that exact functionality, but in using the Elementor page builder. So as you can see, when I'm scrolling down the page right here, I have this header area being sticky. And as soon as you scroll down, you got background changing. While this is coming in, these buttons are changing as you scroll down. So I'm going to show you exactly what we're going to be pulling off in this tutorial. And as you can see, if you keep scrolling, that sticky header gets pushed up. It gets out of here, and then this is just kind of like the rest of the website. And another good thing is you can also click on these buttons, and it will scroll down to the different sections. Now let's jump into the back end of this page so I can show you exactly how I set this up using Elementor. Now here we are on the back end of that page, and let me first show you how everything is laid out over here in the navigator, and then I'm going to show you all the code in CSS I was able to add, to pull this off using Elementor. So let me just go here and expand all of these sections right here so you can get a better understanding. So as you can see right here, this main section, if I close this down, you're going to see is most of the sections right here. So I do have this very last section as a separate section. I did that so the sticky area will stop when you scroll. So I'll cover that later in the tutorial, but just so you better understand, we have one big section, and that's how you're able to change the background color of that section, because it all needs to be kind of contained with nested sections. It gets a little confusing, but let me just kind of open this up so you can really understand. So like I said, we got one big section, and within here we have one big column. So if you see right here, if I scroll down, you're going to see the column with a blue line. That's where it's going to end. So what I have within here is multiple intersections. So the very first intersection is this sticky header, and let me close down that. The next is section 1 is the next intersection. Of course, the next one is section 2 and section 3. And then this last section is kind of like a filler section, and this is where I actually have the HTML code or the JavaScript code. The first thing I recommend you do is take this JavaScript code and throw it into an HTML widget. So as you can see here, I have it at the bottom of the website. So the very last section, I just threw this HTML widget, and you can just copy and paste this code in here just like this. Then the next section is we need to make sure that we have the CSS code that will make all of these backgrounds change and the buttons change as well. So let me just expand this a little bit. And so I just went into your settings, your page settings, and threw in your CSS right there. So of course with CSS, you can add it a million different ways, but this is where I like to add the CSS if it's just going to be an effect on this one page. Okay, so let me go back to each one of these sections, columns, everything, and I'm just going to show you all the different classes I added in order to pull this off, and then I'll slowly walk you through like what each of these things do. So the very first section is, of course, this whole area where it has all of these intersections within it. And the most important thing you need to do is add this CSS class right here called body BG. After you add the body BG to the main section right here, the next step is you need to go to each one of your intersections that's going to be triggering the scroll effect where the background is going to change, you need to add two things, and that is a CSS ID and a CSS class. So what I recommend is the ID is, I'm just calling it section 1, and that's just corresponding to this right here. So this just makes it where these buttons, when you click it, it needs to go somewhere. So that's why I have section 1. So I have each one of these panels section 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then what you need to do is each of these intersections, just add in the class called panel. So each one of these you're going to see is called section 2 panel, 3, 4 panel. So that's how you have to set up the IDs and the classes. The next thing is, if you remember from that tutorial I told you to watch earlier, each of these intersections that need to change the background color, you need to go into here under attributes and add this little bit of code called data color and then the color that you want it to change to. So each one of these has, I'm just going to show you how I have everything laid out. So that intersection is going to change to blue. This intersection is going to change to like a peach, and this last one I believe was like a tan color. Yes. So each one of these sections has that custom attribute. And if you just copied in that CSS code, this is where all the different colors are right here. So you can see that I have, let me expand this so it's a little bit easier to read. So as you can see, we have all of those data colors. They're right here. So we got purple as the background color of this, blue, peach, tan right here. So that's where you need to go ahead and change your attributes if you want to have different colors than what the CSS code already has. And for this bottom section, I had to do a little bit of an offset trick to make this whole thing work. So let me show you what I mean. So when you start to scroll down right here, we need to have the ability to make it where once the user hits the bottom section, we didn't want this to stay sticky and then it would go all the way to the bottom. What we wanted to do was make it stop. This bottom section right here would then push that up. So if you look at the wave example, that's how they have it set up. When you go down to here, you go to the last section, this doesn't continue to stay sticky, this one gets pushed up. So this took me a little bit to figure out that the easiest way to do this is just to kind of throw in another section and make that not sticky. So let me show you how I have that set up. So if you go up into here, I have this whole top panel as its own intersection, and within here I also added body BG. Now what's cool about this code is you can add body BG class to any section on that page and it will change the background color. So if you have a different section on the bottom, you can still change the background color and scroll. It's kind of a cool little feature using JavaScript and CSS. So the reason why I did that is because you wanted to have it where this area, if you look right here, you see how it's getting cut off? That is because that background color needed to be there. So you need to actually force it into here. And I just did that with body BG, and you don't have to worry about any attributes on that. And with that intersection selected, if you've never done a sticky stay in column, it's very easy. You just go to Advanced Motion Effects. Under sticky, you do top and stay in column. So what that's going to do is, just like it says, it's going to stay in that really big column that you created and stay in there until it hits the bottom of that section. So if you are an Elementor, you could see that this is the bottom of that section. So I added this little like buffer area, and then you're going to see that when you start to scroll down, this section is now going to hit that one and then push it out of the screen. So that's what stay in column means right there. And for this bottom section, I had to do a little bit of a hack to make this work. So what I had to do is, you could see I have the very last intersection. So if you look right here, this was intersection 3. This very last one, I called it intersection 4 panel. And you can see the attributes is the data color tan. And the reason why I had to add that in there is because you want to have it, like I said, where it pushes that up, but we still wanted to be able to scroll into the section 4. So if you just add in an intersection like that, it should work, for your website. So then what I did is below that, this section right here is actually the very last section called section 4. And so what I did is I added CSS class body BG to here. So like I said, that JavaScript code is going to automatically change anything called body BG to that color. So once this section gets into that area, it's going to change this background color. I know it's a little confusing, but I really wanted to show how I was able to pull this off. And then under attributes, there's nothing on this intersection. So if we go back to this example, this is what it looks like. There's this little filler section I have right here. And you can go ahead and play with the height to make it where, it scrolls in correctly. I think right here I have it just like a 10 VH. So you can play with whatever it's going to take to make it work for your website. But when you start to scroll down, it gets pushed up. So you can see right there, once it gets there, it pushes him up. Now I'm going to jump back into this top section and kind of show you how I was able to pull this button highlighting as you scroll down. How I was able to pull that off. So if you look right here, I just have a bunch of inline buttons right here. So under advanced, under width, I did inline. So I just have inline buttons right here like that. And if you look right here, I have each button, I just called it buttons 1, and then buttons 2. Let me go back under here, buttons 3 and 4. So I have to make sure that I declare a class for each one of these, because if you go back to your CSS code right here, you need to have it where each one of these buttons I have as a background transparent. So you need to force Elementor into thinking that there's a transparent background, and you do that with just some CSS right here. What's cool about this JavaScript code down here is when a user scrolls into a section, you can have JavaScript force this right here where it says buttons 1, 2, 3, and 4, add class color dash this data color. Basically what that's saying is that attribute color of that section is going to add it to this class called buttons dot whatever. And so now if I go into my CSS, you can see right here I have buttons 2 color blue, and then it pulls into here. I know this gets a little confusing with the CSS and everything, but if you just lay it out this way, play around with it, it should be able to work for your website. One of the trickiest things to do was actually was the JavaScript code. So what you needed to do up here too is I removed that CSS match. So at the same time that it's adding this special class to these buttons, it's also removing it at the same time. So that's the way I was able to pull off the buttons. So that's how I was able to pull off that cool scrolling effect using the Elementor page builder. That's it for this tutorial. Make sure that you give it a thumbs up, subscribe to this YouTube channel, and hit that bell to receive notifications when I release new tutorials like this. Again, this is Mark from Wiki Design.